The air in the Galactic Council chambers felt thick and heavy. Jake Morrison sat in his usual spot in the back corner, watching the alien delegates argue about humans once again. His gray hair was neat and his uniform pressed, but his eyes showed the tiredness of a man who had been doing this job for too long. The crystalline collective representative stood up on her 6 legs. Her body looked like living glass, and when she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "The humans keep taking more space without asking us first," she said, her mandibles clicking with anger. "Their ships dig holes in asteroids, near our holy sites. The noise hurts our minds when we try to meditate." Jake looked at Amy Carter, who sat next to him taking notes. Amy was young, maybe 30 years old, with brown hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had been his aide for 3 years now, and Jake could see the frustration building in her green eyes every time they came to these meetings. The hegemony delegate spoke next. He was tall and thin, with purple skin and 4 arms. "Humans breed too fast," he said in his cold voice. "They make too many babies and need too many worlds. Soon they will want our space too." Jake had heard these complaints 1,000 times before. For 30 years, ever since humans had joined the galactic community, they had been treated like children who did not know how to behave. The other species acted like humans were too young and too stupid to make their own choices. What made it worse was that humans had to sit there and take it. When Earth first made contact with alien civilizations, the human government had made a choice. They decided to hide how strong humanity really was. They let the aliens think humans were weak and primitive. The galaxy had rules about new species. Humans were given the label Category 4 Emerging Species, which meant they had to follow strict limits on everything they did. They could only have a certain number of ships. They could only settle on certain types of planets. They had to ask permission before they could research new technology. Jake remembered the early days when human diplomats were excited just to be included in galactic society. They thought if they followed all the rules and were polite, the other species would eventually treat them as equals. That was 30 years ago. Jake was not excited anymore. "The human colonies are too close to our trade routes," complained another delegate. This one looked like a giant spider made of metal. "Their radio signals interfere with our navigation systems." Amy leaned over and whispered to Jake, "Sir, we could solve their navigation problem in about 10 minutes if we were allowed to share our quantum communication technology." Jake nodded, but said nothing. The humans had technology that could fix most of the problems the aliens complained about, but they were not allowed to use it. The Galactic Council had decided that humans were not advanced enough to have such technology, so humans had to pretend they did not have it. The session went on for 4 more hours. Jake listened to species after species complain about human activities. Some said humans were too loud. Others said humans were too quiet and must be hiding something. The bird-like Altarians said human music was offensive to their sensitive hearing. The aquatic depths dwellers said human underwater cities were built in the wrong places. Jake had stopped taking notes years ago. The complaints were always the same, and the solutions were always the same too. Humans would apologize, agree to new restrictions, and promise to do better. What the aliens did not know was that every human ship, every human colony, and every human research station was much more than it appeared to be. The small patrol ships that the aliens saw were actually powerful warships in disguise. The mining operations were massive industrial complexes that could build weapons and ships faster than any alien civilization could imagine. The research stations were monitoring every move the alien fleets made. Roy Jensen sat in the observation deck above the main chamber, watching the proceedings through the thick glass. He was the captain of the exploration ship Horizon, one of the vessels that the aliens thought was just a simple research ship. Roy knew better. Hidden in the Horizon's hull were weapons that could destroy entire fleets, engines that could outrun anything the aliens had, and shields that could withstand attacks that would vaporize alien warships. Next to Roy sat Lisa Wong, his chief engineer. She was working on a tablet, running calculations for a new type of engine that could fold space and time. If the aliens knew what she was working on, they would panic. The technology was centuries ahead of anything the galaxy had seen before. "How Much longer do we have to keep pretending? Lisa asked quietly. Roy watched Jake Morrison accept another set of restrictions on human mining rights. As long as Earth Command says so, he replied. They think it is better to let the aliens believe they are in control. The session finally ended with humans agreeing to reduce their fleet size by 20% and to stop all mining operations. Within 50 light years of crystalline collective space, Jake stood up slowly, his knees aching from sitting for so long. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Jake made his way to a secure communication booth. He sent an encrypted message back to Earth Command that would take 6 hours to reach. Home. The message was short. How much longer do we maintain the charade? Jake knew what the answer would be before it came back. Earth Command had been saying the same thing for 30 years. Be patient, follow the plan, let the aliens think they understand humans. But Jake could feel something changing. He had been watching the alien delegates carefully during the session, and he could see they were getting bolder. They were not just complaining about human activities anymore. They were starting to talk about taking action. The hegemony delegate had mentioned something about population control measures for human colonies. The crystalline collective representative had talked about relocation of human settlements that were too close to their territory. Jake had been a diplomat long enough to know what those words really meant. The aliens were not just planning to complain about humans anymore. They were planning to do something about the human problem. When the response came back from Earth Command 6 hours later, it was the same message Jake had been getting for 3 decades. Patience, Ambassador. Let them think they know us. But this time, Jake noticed something different in the message. There was a second line that had never been there before. Prepare contingency protocols. Monitor all alien fleet movements. Report any signs of coordinated hostile action immediately. Jake stared at the message for a long time. After 30 years of playing weak, it seemed like Earth Command was finally getting ready for the possibility that the peaceful approach might not work forever. He deleted the message and walked back to his quarters. Outside his window, he could see alien ships moving through space around the station. They looked so confident, so sure that they were the masters of the galaxy. Jake wondered what they would think if they knew the truth about humanity. He wondered how long it would be before they found out. The alarm screamed through the corridors of Armstrong Station at exactly 3:47 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Kate Sullivan ran from her quarters toward the command center, her boots pounding against the metal floor. She had been sleeping when the emergency alert came through, but the message was clear enough to wake her from a dead sleep. Human colonies were under attack. Kate burst into the command center to find her staff already at their stations, faces pale and voices tight. With controlled anger, the main screen showed a tactical display of the Centauri sector, where red dots marked the locations of active combat. Report, Kate ordered, pulling on her uniform jacket as she walked to the central command station. Commander Pete Rodriguez looked up from his communication console. His dark eyes were hard with rage. 12 colonies hit simultaneously, Admiral. The Hegemony Alliance launched a coordinated strike 30 minutes ago. They are targeting civilian areas first. Kate felt her blood turn cold. Casualties? Colony ship New Boston is gone, ma'am. 8,000 dead, including 1,500 children. The Hegemony destroyers hit the main habitat dome without warning. No survivors. The number hit Kate like a physical blow. 8,000 people, families, children, gone in an instant because the aliens had decided humans were a problem that needed to be solved. What about the other colonies? Under heavy bombardment, the aliens are not accepting surrender offers. They are broadcasting this as a police action approved by the Galactic Council. They say they are relocating human settlements for the good of regional stability. Kate walked to the main display and studied the tactical information. The attack was well planned and perfectly coordinated. The Hegemony had been preparing for this for months, maybe years. They had positioned their fleets carefully, struck at the weakest points in human defenses, and timed everything to cause maximum damage. What made it worse was that the attack was legal under galactic law. The Galactic Council had voted to authorize the relocation of human colonies 3 days ago. Jake Morrison had sent desperate messages warning that something was coming, but Earth Command had told him to continue playing diplomatic games. Now those games had ended with 8,000 dead humans. "Ma'am," Rodriguez called out, "we are getting reports from the other sectors. The Crystalline Collective is moving ships toward the Vega colonies. The Altarian Empire has sent a battle group toward New Mars. This is not just the hegemony. This is a coordinated action by multiple species." Kate understood what she was seeing. The aliens had finally decided to solve their human problem permanently. They were not just attacking one or two colonies. They were launching a systematic campaign to drive humanity out of space entirely. "Get me a direct channel to Earth Command," Kate ordered. The communication took several minutes to establish. When the channel opened, Kate found herself looking at General Carl Adams, the head of Earth's military forces. Behind him, she could see other officers moving quickly through what looked like a war room. "Admiral Sullivan," Carl said, his voice grim. "I assume you have seen the reports." "Yes, sir. 8,000 dead at New Boston, multiple colonies under attack. The aliens are not taking prisoners or accepting surrenders. They are conducting extermination operations." Carl nodded slowly. "The president has been briefed. The cabinet is meeting now, but I think we all know what the decision will be." Kate had been waiting for this moment for 30 years. Every human military officer had known it might come someday. The moment when humanity would have to choose between extinction and revealing their true nature. "Sir, are we authorized to implement the Unleash protocol?" "Stand by, Admiral." The channel went quiet for 10 minutes. Kate watched the tactical display as more red dots appeared. The aliens were expanding their attacks, hitting human research stations and trade posts. They were being thorough and methodical. When the channel reopened, Carl's face was set in hard lines. "Admiral Sullivan, you are hereby authorized to implement the Unleash protocol. All restrictions on human military technology are removed. All concealment protocols are terminated. You are authorized to use any and all means necessary to defend human colonies and citizens." Kate felt something shift inside her chest. For 30 years, she had commanded ships that were deliberately designed to look weak and primitive. She had followed rules that forced her to hide humanity's real capabilities. She had watched aliens treat her people like children who could not defend themselves. "Not anymore." "Understood, sir. What are our rules of engagement?" "The aliens started this war by targeting our civilians. They chose to make this a war of extermination. Our response will be proportional to their actions." Kate turned to her bridge crew. These men and women had spent their entire careers pretending to be less than they were. They had watched alien fleets patrol human space like they owned it. They had accepted insults and restrictions because their government told them to be patient. "All stations, this is Admiral Sullivan. Effective immediately, the Unleash protocol is in effect. Remove all limiters from our weapon systems. Activate all hidden sensor arrays. Contact all deep cover ships and stations. It is time to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of." The response was immediate. Throughout human space, ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers and research vessels began powering up weapons systems that the galaxy did not know existed. Space stations that had been classified as mining operations revealed themselves as heavily armed fortress platforms. Human military personnel who had been posing as civilian scientists and engineers took control of hidden command centers. Kate opened a channel to the hegemony fleet that was attacking the New Perth colony. The enemy commander appeared on screen, his purple face twisted with arrogance. "Human Admiral," he said with obvious contempt, "you will order your ships to stand down. Your primitive weapons cannot match our advanced technology. We are conducting a legal police action approved by the Galactic Council." Kate looked at the alien for a long moment. Behind her, she could hear her weapons officer reporting that all systems were online and ready to fire. "Hegemony, Commander," Kate said in a calm voice. "You have 1 hour to withdraw all of your forces from human space. If you do not comply, you will face the consequences." The alien laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You threaten us? Your weak little ships are no match for our battle fleet. We will teach the galaxy that humans know their place." Kate nodded slowly. Communications. Send a priority message to all human military units. Authorization code. Unleash protocol. Tell them the Deathworlders are done playing fair. The alien commander was still laughing when Kate cut the channel. He would not be laughing much longer. Throughout human space, the message was received and understood. The era of restraint was over. The galaxy was about to learn what a Deathworld species could really do when they stopped holding back. Kate looked at the tactical display one more time. The red dots marking alien fleets looked so confident, so sure of their superiority. They were about to discover how wrong they were. 1 year after the 72-hour war, Ambassador Jake Morrison walked into the Galactic Council chambers for the first time since the conflict ended. The room looked the same, but everything else had changed completely. The delegates who had once treated humans like unruly children now stood when Jake entered. The same aliens who had complained about human expansion and demanded restrictions on human activities now waited quietly for Jake to speak. The human delegation will now present the new galactic trade regulations, Jake announced, his voice carrying an authority that had never existed in his previous appearances. Behind him, Admiral Kate Sullivan observed the proceedings with the calm confidence of someone whose fleet could destroy any planet in the galaxy. Jake placed a datapad on the central podium. The regulations it contained would reshape how every species in the galaxy conducted business. More importantly, they would ensure that what happened to the human colonies could never happen again. These regulations will establish fair treatment for all species, Jake continued. They include specific protections against ethnic cleansing, restrictions on coordinated military actions against civilian populations, and mandatory arbitration procedures for territorial disputes. Ambassador Zexhai of the Crystalline Collective raised one of her glass-like appendages. Her body had remained a pale purple color since the war ended, a sign of permanent fear among her species. The proposed regulations are quite comprehensive, she said, her voice trembling like wind chimes in a storm. What assurance do we have that humanity will not abuse their new position of power? Jake looked at her for a long moment. The question would have been insulting a year ago, when the aliens had been planning to exterminate human colonies. Now it just sounded desperate. The same assurance you had before, Jake replied. Our commitment to peaceful coexistence. The difference is that now you understand the choice we are making. The regulations passed without a single opposing vote. Every species in the galaxy agreed to the new rules, knowing that the alternative was to face the same fate as the hegemony worlds that had been occupied by human forces. Dr. Helen Park sat in her office on Earth, finishing the report that would become known throughout the galaxy as the Deathworlder Doctrine. As the new chief xenological advisor, it was her job to explain to the galaxy how human-alien relations would work in the new age. The report was simple and direct, written in language that every species could understand. It began with a basic fact that the galaxy had learned the hard way. Humans were apex predators who had chosen to be peaceful, not weak creatures who had been forced to accept limitations. Humanity desires peace with all species, Helen wrote in the final paragraph. We will gladly cooperate, trade, and share knowledge with any civilization that approaches us with respect and good faith. However, we will never again pretend to be less than we are for the comfort of others. We are a Deathworld species. We survived and thrived on a planet that tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned patience, strategy, and the art of measured response. But we also learned that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to demonstrate the cost of war. The report was distributed to every government in known space. Within weeks, it became required reading in alien military, academies, and diplomatic schools. The galaxy needed to understand the new reality. Humans were no longer asking for permission to exist. Captain Alex Bennett stood on the bridge of his new command, the exploration vessel Pathfinder. The ship was no longer disguised as a weak patrol boat. It carried weapons that could destroy fleets and sensors that could monitor entire star systems. Status report, Alex ordered as they approached the edge of the galaxy where no alien species had ever traveled. All systems operational, sir, reported his science officer. We are detecting 3 potentially habitable systems in this sector. No signs of intelligent life. Alex nodded. Human exploration was no longer constrained by alien approval or artificial limitations. Human ships were pushing into regions of space that had been declared off-limits by the old galactic government. "Begin detailed scans," Alex ordered. "If these worlds are suitable, we will establish colonies here." The expansion of human territory was happening faster than anyone had expected. Without the restrictions imposed by the Galactic Council, human colony ships were settling new worlds every month. The galaxy was learning that humans bred fast and adapted quickly to new environments. More importantly, the aliens were discovering that humans shared their advanced technology freely with species that treated them fairly. Worlds that had suffered under the old galactic system were now prospering under human protection. General Carl Adams reviewed the latest intelligence reports in his office beneath Geneva. The galaxy was adapting to human dominance faster than his analysts had predicted. "Sir," reported Colonel Nancy Price, "we have received formal alliance requests from 47 different species. Most of them are offering military cooperation in exchange for access to our technology. What about the former hegemony worlds?" "Fully integrated into our sphere of influence, sir. The population actually prefers human rule to their old government. We have established democratic governments on 12 former hegemony planets." Carl was not surprised. The species that had attacked human children had been brutal dictatorships that oppressed their own people. Human occupation forces had brought freedom and prosperity to worlds that had known only fear and poverty. "Any signs of resistance movements?" "None, sir. The few groups that opposed our presence have been convinced to cooperate peacefully. It turns out that most aliens prefer negotiation to the alternative. 5 years after the war, a memorial was erected on Armstrong Station for the 8,000 humans who had died in the alien attack. The ceremony was attended by representatives from every major species in the galaxy, including former enemies who now served as allies. Jake Morrison stood before the memorial during the dedication ceremony. The simple black stone bore the names of every human who had died, including the 1,500 children who had been murdered in the attack on New Boston. "This memorial reminds us why we chose to reveal our true strength," Jake said to the assembled crowd. "Not for conquest, not for dominance, but to ensure that no human children would ever again die because others mistook our peaceful nature for helplessness." The inscription on the memorial had become humanity's unofficial motto in galactic affairs. They believed our kindness was weakness. They mistook our patience for ignorance. They confused our restraint with inability. They learned otherwise. Captain Roy Jensen, now serving as the commanding officer of the Terra Nova shipyards, watched the ceremony from his office. Through his window, he could see dozens of ships under construction, including vessels designed by alien engineers who had chosen to work with humanity rather than against them. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson in interstellar politics. Respect was not earned through weakness or accommodation. It was earned through strength carefully applied. Human colonies now spanned the galaxy, protected by fleets that no enemy could challenge. Human technology was helping to solve problems that had plagued alien civilizations for centuries. Human diplomats negotiated from positions of strength rather than supplication. But perhaps most importantly, no species ever again made the mistake of assuming that humanity's peaceful nature indicated weakness. The tale of the day Deathworlders stopped. Playing fair became a legend told on every world in the galaxy. It served as a reminder that the most dangerous predator was often the one that chose not to hunt. Commander Lisa Wong, now captain of the research vessel Discovery, summed up the new reality in her mission logs. "We tried being the galaxy's junior partners. We tried following their rules and accepting their limitations. That approach led to 8,000 dead civilians and a war that could have been avoided. Now we operate from a position of strength, and somehow everyone seems much more interested in peaceful solutions." The galaxy had learned that Deathworlders could indeed play fair, but only when everyone else did the same. The age of human weakness was over. The age of human strength had begun, and the galaxy was safer for it. General Carl Adams stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, watching the tactical displays that showed human fleets moving across the galaxy. 72 hours had passed since the aliens had attacked human colonies. In those 3 days, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted completely. "Sir," reported Colonel Nancy Price, looking up from her command station. "The last hegemony military base has surrendered. Their entire fleet is either destroyed or captured. They are asking for mercy." Carl nodded without emotion. "What about the other species that joined the attack?" "The Crystalline Collective pulled back all their ships after we destroyed their advance fleet near Vega. The Altarian Empire is offering complete surrender. The minor species that supported the attack are all requesting immediate peace talks." "Casualties on our side?" "Minimal, sir. We lost 3 ships total, and those were mostly due to mechanical failures rather than enemy action. The aliens never had a chance to mount an effective resistance once we revealed our true capabilities." Carl walked to the main display that showed the current position of every human military asset. Ships that had been hidden for decades were now patrolling openly through space. The disguises were gone. The pretense was over. "Any word from the Galactic Council?" "They are requesting an emergency session, sir. Every major species wants to negotiate new treaties immediately." Carl almost smiled. 3 days ago, the Galactic Council had voted to authorize the extermination of human colonies. Now they wanted to talk about peace treaties. The speed of their change in attitude would have been amusing if it were not built on the graves of 8,000 dead humans. Captain Roy Jensen stood on the bridge of what had been known as the exploration vessel Horizon. The ship had been transformed in the past 3 days from a disguised research ship into the flagship of the 3rd Human Battle Fleet. Around him, his crew worked at stations that had been hidden behind false panels for 15 years. "Status. Report," Roy ordered. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we have established patrol routes throughout the former hegemony territory. Their planets are cooperating fully with our occupation forces. No signs of resistance. What about their industrial capacity? We have seized control of their major shipyards and manufacturing centers. Our engineers estimate we can convert their facilities to human use within 6 months." Roy nodded. The speed of the victory had surprised even human military planners. They had expected the war to last weeks or months. Instead, it had been over in 3 days. The secret was that humanity had not just been hiding their technology. They had been studying every alien species for 30 years, learning their weaknesses and developing specific strategies to defeat each one. The hegemony relied on energy shields that were useless against human gravitational weapons. The Crystalline Collective used crystal-based technology that shattered when exposed to certain frequencies. The Altarians had excellent sensors but weak armor that could not stop human kinetic projectiles. Every species had been analyzed, categorized, and prepared for. When the war began, humanity had not been fighting blind. They had been executing battle plans that had been developed over decades. Lisa Wong worked at her engineering station, monitoring the deployment of human technology across captured alien territory. The transition was happening faster than anyone had expected. "Captain," she called out to Roy, "we are receiving reports from the other fleets. Human technology is being installed on captured alien stations throughout the galaxy. We will have complete sensor coverage of all major trade routes within the week. Any problems with the alien populations?" "No, sir. Most of them seem relieved that the war is over. The hegemony government was not popular with their own people. Many alien civilians are actually cooperating with our occupation forces." Roy understood why. The human military had been careful to target only military assets during the war. Civilian populations had been left alone, and in many cases human forces had actually improved conditions on alien worlds by providing medical aid and food supplies. The contrast with the alien attack on human civilians had not been lost on the galaxy. The species that had started the war by massacring children had been defeated by opponents who went out of their way to protect non-combatants. Admiral Kate Sullivan reviewed the final battle reports in her office on Armstrong Station. The numbers were almost impossible to believe. In 72 hours, humanity had gone from being the weakest species in the galaxy to being the undisputed dominant power. "Ma'am," her aide reported, "we have a communication request from the Galactic Council. They want to discuss immediate ceasefire terms." Kate laughed. a sound with no humor in it. Tell them the ceasefire has already begun. It started when the last enemy ship surrendered 3 hours ago. What about their request for negotiations? Schedule a meeting for next week, but make it clear that we will be dictating terms, not negotiating them. The species that attacked our children do not get to bargain for better treatment. The final act of the war came when Captain Steve Walsh received orders to demonstrate human power to any species that might still be considering resistance. His ship, the Vengeance, had been disguised as a simple cargo hauler for 12 years. Now it revealed weapons that made the galaxy's most advanced battleships look primitive. The target was a military asteroid base that the hegemony had abandoned when their forces retreated. The base was empty of life, but still contained weapons and equipment that other species might want to capture. Steve opened a communication channel that broadcast to every major government in the galaxy. This is Captain Walsh of the human battleship Vengeance. The war that began with the massacre of human civilians is now over. Any species considering future attacks on human territory should observe the following demonstration. The asteroid base was 20 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide. It had been carved out of solid rock and reinforced with the strongest materials the hegemony could produce. It was designed to withstand direct hits from the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. The Vengeance fired once. The asteroid simply vanished. One moment it was there, a massive fortress floating in space. The next moment there was nothing but empty vacuum and a fading energy signature. The demonstration was broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. The message was clear. This was what happened to enemies of humanity. Within hours, every remaining hostile fleet had surrendered. The few species that had been considering joining the war against humanity immediately declared their neutrality. Several alien governments that had supported the attack on human colonies began offering tribute and reparations. General Carl Adams received the final report at exactly 72 hours after the war had begun. Every enemy military force had been destroyed or captured. Every hostile government had surrendered or been replaced. The galaxy was now effectively under human control. "Sir," Colonel Nancy Price reported, "we are receiving surrender offers from species that were not even involved in the original attack. It seems our demonstration of power has convinced everyone that resistance is pointless." Carl nodded. The war was over, but now came the harder task of building a peace that would prevent another massacre of human civilians. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. "It is time to show the galaxy what the new order looks like." The 72-hour war had ended. The age of human dominance had begun. Commander Alex Bennett stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching 300 enemy warships approach the human colony of New Perth. The hegemony fleet looked impressive on his sensors, spread out in perfect attack formation with their weapons, charged and ready to fire. The aliens had no idea what was about to happen to them. "Sir," reported his weapons officer, Ryan Clark, "all enemy ships are now within the engagement zone. Mirror field generators are online and ready to deploy." Alex nodded. The Defiance had been classified by Galactic Intelligence as a light patrol vessel, barely worth noticing. What they did not know was that the ship contained technology that was centuries ahead of anything in the galaxy. Hidden within the hull were weapons systems that could bend space and time itself. "Deploy the mirror field," Alex ordered. The space around the hegemony fleet suddenly twisted. Reality folded in on itself as gravitational field manipulators created a bubble of distorted physics around the enemy ships. The alien vessels found themselves trapped in a zone where the normal laws of space and time no longer applied. On the IQ, hegemony command ship, alarms began screaming. The fleet commander stared at his sensors in confusion as his ship seemed to be moving in slow motion, while the space around them rippled like water. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Report." "Sir, we are caught in some kind of field," his tactical officer replied, his voice filled with panic. "Our weapons cannot lock onto targets outside the field. Our engines are not responding normally. Sir, this technology should not exist." The hegemony commander felt fear creep into his chest. His intelligence reports had said that humans had primitive technology, barely advanced enough for space travel. This was impossible. All ships, full power to weapons, he ordered. Fire everything at the human ship. The hegemony fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and kinetic projectiles filled the space around the Defiance. But the human ship seemed untouched. The weapons passed through empty space, hitting nothing. "Sir," Ryan Clark reported from his weapons station, "the enemy is firing at mirror images. Our real position is masked by the field distortion." Alex opened a communication channel that would broadcast to every ship in the hegemony fleet. His voice was calm and professional, but underneath was a coldness that made his crew shiver. "This is Commander Bennett to all hegemony forces. You attacked our civilians. You targeted our children. You believed we were weak because we chose restraint. That restraint is now terminated." The alien fleet commander felt his blood turn to impossible, he whispered. "Humans do not have this technology." "Sir," his science officer called out, "I am detecting massive energy buildups from the human ship. The power readings are off the scale. Sir, that ship is generating more energy than our entire fleet combined." Alex turned to his weapons officer. "Begin systematic disassembly of the enemy fleet. Start with their command ships. Make sure the galaxy can watch what happens when you attack human children." The Defiance began its work. One by one, the hegemony ships simply came apart. They did not explode in dramatic fireballs. Instead, they unraveled at the molecular level, their hulls and equipment separating into their basic components. The crews had time to send distress signals before their ships dissolved around them. The entire engagement was broadcast on all frequencies throughout the galaxy. Every species with the technology to receive communications watched in horror as 300 of the hegemony's most advanced warships were destroyed by a single human vessel. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Jake Morrison sat in the Adi observation lounge with Ambassador Zexhai from the Crystalline Collective. The alien's glass-like body had turned deep purple with fear as she watched the destruction of the hegemony fleet. "This is impossible," she whispered, her voice like breaking crystal. "Your species was evaluated. You have Category 4 technology, at best. How can you have weapons like this?" Jake turned to look at her, and for the first time in 30 years he was not hiding his emotions. The careful diplomatic mask was gone, replaced by something that made the alien take a step backward. "We let you evaluate what we wanted you to see," Jake said quietly. "Did you really think a species that crawled out of a death world would show all their weapons to potential enemies?" The revelation hit the galactic community like a physical blow. Intelligence agencies across the galaxy began frantically reviewing their files on human technology and capabilities. What they found terrified them. Every evaluation of human technology had been carefully staged. The humans had shown them exactly what they wanted the aliens to see, nothing more. The weak patrol ships, the primitive mining equipment, the simple research stations, all of it had been an elaborate deception. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy as the truth became clear. Human exploration vessels revealed themselves to be heavily armed battleships. Mining operations activated as massive industrial complexes capable of producing entire fleets. Research stations powered up weapons that could destroy planets. The galaxy realized that they had not been dealing with a young species learning to fit in. They had been living alongside predators who had been pretending to be prey animals. On Earth, General Carl Adams stood in the command center watching reports come in from across human space. The hidden infrastructure that had been built over 30 years was coming online simultaneously. Ships, weapons, and technology that the galaxy had never imagined were being revealed. "Status report," Carl ordered. Colonel Nancy Price looked up from her tactical display. "All concealed assets are now active, sir. The Hegemony Home Fleet is requesting immediate surrender terms. The Crystalline Collective has pulled back all their ships to defensive positions. The Altarian Empire is asking for emergency peace negotiations. What about the other species?" "Sir, we are receiving communication requests from every major government in the galaxy. They all want to know the same thing. How did we hide this from them for 30 years? Carl nodded grimly. The answer was simple but terrifying for the Eon's aliens to contemplate. Humans were very good at learning from the mistakes of others. They had studied every species that had revealed their full capabilities too early in galactic politics. Those species had been conquered, contained, or forced into disadvantageous positions. Humanity had chosen patience instead. Throughout the galaxy, alien military commanders stared at their tactical displays in disbelief. Human ships that they had dismissed as harmless were now revealing weapons that made their own fleets look like toys. Human colonies that they had thought were helpless were activating defense systems that could destroy entire invasion fleets. The most terrifying realization was that this was not new technology. The humans had been hiding these capabilities for decades, watching and learning while the galaxy treated them like children. Captain Steve Walsh of the human battleship Vengeance provided the demonstration that ended any thoughts of continued resistance. His ship, which had been disguised as a cargo hauler for 15 years, targeted a dead moon in an empty system. The moon ceased to exist. The energy release from the ship's main weapon was visible from 3 neighboring star systems. The moon was not destroyed or shattered. It was converted into its basic atomic components in less than 30 seconds. This is Captain Walsh to all galactic forces. He broadcast across subspace. Humanity has spent 30 years learning about each of your species. We know your weaknesses, your military capabilities, and your strategic limitations. We chose peace, and you chose war. This is what war with a Deathworld species actually looks like. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the scope of humanity's deception became clear. They had not just been hiding advanced weapons, they had been preparing for the possibility that their peaceful approach might fail. The war that had started with the massacre of human civilians was ending before it had truly begun. The species that had attacked humanity were discovering that they had not declared war on a weak enemy. They had declared war on the apex predators of the galaxy.